On this Thursday night, a disgraced former prince arrested. Why police spent hours questioning Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor.
We're very hopeful that this is the start of the domino effect. This is where the house of cards starts falling.
How the royal family is responding. Canada's rise in extortion, particularly targeting South Asians.
The message to criminals, we're going to make your life miserable.
Ottawa's new strategy to combat the crisis. Alberta's premier takes aim at immigration, the problems she claims it's causing, and her potential solutions. Plus, another hair-raising hockey match ends in overtime. The Canadian women's crushing loss to the U.S.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. He has been stripped of his royal titles, evicted from his home on the grounds of Windsor Castle, and today the former Prince Andrew was arrested by the police. He spent hours in custody, suspected of misconduct in public office because of his close association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Late tonight, Andrew was released, whisked away from the police station in the back of a car. An extraordinary fall from grace for the brother of King Charles. Until now, Andrew had been protected by the palace. Not anymore. In a statement, King Charles said, "What now follows is the full, fair and proper process by which this issue is investigated. Let me state clearly, the law must take its course." It was Virginia Giuffre who publicly accused Prince Andrew of sexually abusing her when she was a teenager. He has always denied that. Giuffre took her own life last year. This, her family says, is the day she was waiting for.
I just remember so clearly her turning to us and saying, never. I can never let this go. While I know that these perpetrators, these men, could still be out there harming people today.
Andrew was not charged today, but he was not cleared either. Vincent McAviney is in London and begins our coverage tonight.
Shortly before 8 a.m, several unmarked police cars surrounded Wood Farm on the King's Sandringham estate, where Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is currently staying. Officers arrested the former prince on his 66th birthday, taking him for questioning over allegations he leaked sensitive government documents to the late convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein while serving as a UK trade envoy in the 2000s and early 2010s. Officers searched that residence as well as Royal Lodge in Windsor, where Andrew lived for more than 20 years before being evicted by the King just over 2 weeks ago.
We start with breaking news.
The news was quickly broken by the BBC.
Fox News Alert, we begin this hour with a breaking news story.
And carried by broadcasters around the world. The royal family was not forewarned about the arrest and carried on their normal schedule, with the King attending a fashion show with designer Stella McCartney. He refused to answer journalists' questions on the way in. Princess Anne and Queen Camilla also carried out their arrangements, keen to keep calm and carry on. King Charles's statement, which the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Kate, have fully supported, shows recognition of how serious a situation this is, with the old royal maxim of never complain, never explain clearly outdated. After almost 12 hours in custody, Andrew was released under investigation. Searches have finished at the Norfolk property, but continue at Royal Lodge in Windsor. Andrew has previously denied any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein. Several other police forces in the UK are currently carrying out investigations into the pair's relationship, including allegations Epstein trafficked women into the country on his private jet for Andrew, something former Prime Minister Gordon Brown has urged them to do to stop the alleged victims from being forgotten.
It cannot be stressed enough how perilous a moment this is for the royal family, with commentators likening it to the abdication crisis 90 years ago. It's unprecedented for a royal to be arrested, and if Andrew is charged and convicted, he faces several years in prison. The damage to the reputation of the monarchy is incalculable. Donna?
Vincent McAviney in London, thank you. It's been 20 days since the heavily redacted Epstein files were released by the U.S. Justice Department. The details in the roughly 3 million pages are having repercussions around the world and are still being sifted through, but so far only a few people have faced serious consequences because of their association with Epstein and his sex crimes against women and girls. As Eric Sorensen reports, the calls for more transparency and renewed investigations keep growing.
This was Andrew's last on-camera appearance before his arrest and stunning fall from grace. But will other powerful figures be held accountable? A new UN human rights report declares conduct exposed in the Epstein files may rise above individual crimes to crimes against humanity.
There was a coordinated identification, recruitment, grooming strategy. There was definitely a knowledge by those who participated, either directly aided or abetted, of the existence of these patterns of crimes.
There are also calls for the U.S. Department of Justice to release more files unredacted. One congressman accuses the DOJ of a cover-up.
The Department of Justice must set up a special prosecution committee to go after those in the Epstein files that are accountable.
Some international luminaries are being held to account. Norway's former prime minister is charged with gross corruption. The former culture minister in France resigned and is under investigation. Britain's former ambassador to the U.S. was fired. But no one in the U.S. besides Epstein and his partner have been charged, even though many powerful figures have links to them, including billionaire Elon Musk, former President Bill Clinton, President Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and Trump himself.
But I'm the one that can talk about it because I've been totally exonerated. I did nothing.
The U.S. Attorney General has been unwilling to provide more information on Trump's past ties to Epstein.
They are trying to deflect from all the great things Donald Trump has done.
It's a colossal failure of justice, failure of accountability.
But pressure is building on Casey Wasserman to step down as chair of the 28 Los Angeles Olympics. And Bill Gates has canceled a keynote address to the AI summit in India amid the Epstein controversy. The family of Virginia Giuffre, who accused former Prince Andrew of sexual abuse, is optimistic others will face justice.
I think we're very hopeful that this is the start of the domino effect. This is where the house of cards starts falling.
Astonishingly, where the house of cards has started falling is in the House of Windsor. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
President Trump, who says it's time to move on from the Epstein files, wanted to focus today on his so-called Board of Peace. Several member countries have pledged billions towards a relief package for Gaza, but most Western allies are staying away. There's concern what started as an effort to rebuild Gaza is turning into an attempt to replace the UN, with Trump putting himself in charge. Candice Cole reports.
President Donald Trump addressed nearly 50 countries Thursday during his inaugural convening of the Board of Peace in Washington, where he outlined billions of dollars in pledges from member nations to aid Gaza's reconstruction and stability in the region.
Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, UAE, Morocco, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Uzbekistan, and Kuwait have all contributed more than $7 billion toward the relief package. That's great.
And Trump pledged $10 billion from the U.S. to go to the Board of Peace, though it's not clear how that money would be allocated. He also announced pledges from several countries to send troops to set up a stabilization force in Gaza. Egypt and Jordan are on board to train police there. But without full cooperation from Israel and Hamas, experts on the region say the board's ambitions will be difficult to carry out.
You could raise $100 billion if you can't spend the money because the political and security environment in Gaza makes that impossible. What good is the money? You're going to need Hamas's active acquiescence, if not cooperation, in getting rid of their guns.
Other critical questions remain concerning who will govern Gaza and whether Hamas will agree to disarm, a key sticking point for Israel. But U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio insisted during the meeting that this is the only path forward.
We have to get this right. There is no plan B for Gaza. Plan B is going back to war.
Over 24 countries, including Hungary, Saudi Arabia, and Argentina, have joined Trump's Board of Peace, which allows members to buy a permanent seat on the board for $1 billion. Several Western and European allies, skeptical of the board, attended as observers. Candice Cole, Global News, Washington.
Canada's Prime Minister was in Surrey, BC today, meeting law enforcement officials. Extortion has become a big problem there. Dozens of cases have been reported this year, many of them targeting South Asians. David Akin explains what's being planned to combat it and the politics behind it.
It can be terrifying. Homes and businesses strafed with gunfire by gangs trying to extort money out of law-abiding, everyday Canadians. It's a phenomenon most prevalent in Canada's South Asian communities, especially in Brampton and Mississauga, Ontario, and in Surrey, BC.
We're meeting here today on an incredibly important issue.
Indeed, so important that Surrey City Council has asked Ottawa to declare a state of emergency. So, while in Surrey, Prime Minister Mark Carney said that in addition to new laws and more money for police, he has asked a federal financial reporting agency to do more to follow the money behind these extortion rackets.
We need our financial institutions to recognize the pattern, to follow the money, provide law enforcement and prosecutors with the information. Huge investment there. Thanks for everything you're doing.
For the Liberals, they are dealing not only with a crime problem, they are trying to solve a political problem. In last spring's election, Liberals lost votes and seats to Conservatives in South Asian neighborhoods near Vancouver, in Calgary, and in Brampton. And rising crime was the reason.
I believe that we as Conservatives have put forward solutions in the past 5 years that I've been in Parliament, and particularly in the last 3 years, that the government has widely panned. They've said, no, we don't want any of those things.
Thank you very much.
The finance minister went to Mississauga and was flanked by two of his cabinet colleagues from Brampton. That's a clear affirmation that Liberals got the message voters there sent them in the last election.
Our message to criminals is both powerful and simple. Enough is enough. And this morning, we're going to double down on measures to fight extortion.
Members of these extortion gangs often include recently arrived young men from India. And when Carney travels to India next week, finding ways to work together to fight extortion in Canada will almost certainly be on the agenda. Donna.
David Akin in Ottawa. Thanks, David.
Curl and drag. You saw it? How are you doing? I saw it. I saw it on the way over. Yeah.
The Prime Minister, like legions of Canadians, kept a close eye on Olympic hockey today, watching the women's hockey gold medal game between Team USA and Team Canada. The two powerhouse teams kept it going right to the end. Mike Armstrong is covering the games in Milan. Mike, take us through how this all played out.
Well, Donna, this American team rolled over every opponent on their way to this game. Well, today they faced a Canadian team that was ready to push back. The border between Canada and the U.S. may be friendly. The rivalry between the women's hockey teams is not. These teams were destined to meet in this game. The first period was tight and even. There were no penalties until the second period and the first goal. Canada was shorthanded. Now, the two traded scoring chances back and forth. Canada carried its 1-0 lead right up to the last 3 minutes. The U.S. pulled its goalie and tied the game. And so the latest chapter of one of sport's greatest rivalries went to overtime. It wouldn't last long. Defenseman Megan Keller scoring the golden goal 4 minutes and 7 seconds into extra time. No! For the Canadian hockey fans who've made the trek here to Italy to support their teams, this loss to the U.S. stung.
Upsetting, but good game. We got silver medal. Happy with that.
As soon as they pulled the goalie, always happens. Just happened with Finland. We knew it was going to happen. Could have gone either way in the overtime, and we're proud of them.
No shame in silver, especially when you're playing 3-on-3. I don't know what the Olympic Committee is deciding there, but 3-on-3 overtime in a gold medal game, total mistake.
Attention will now turn to Friday's men's game. Canada takes on Finland. There's still no update on Sidney Crosby. Coach John Cooper says they're taking it day by day. Donna?
All right, Mike Armstrong in Milan, thank you. Alberta's premier targets immigration. Coming up, why Danielle Smith claims it's a problem. Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith is set to address the province tonight ahead of the release of a provincial budget next week. Alberta is facing a deficit driven in part by slumping oil prices. But Smith is blaming federal immigration policies. And as Heather Urix West reports, she wants to take more control over immigration.
With what's expected to be a bad news budget just days away, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is taking to primetime TV.
I think it's no secret that a part of our budget challenges, number one, is on the revenue side.
With world oil prices slumping, Alberta coffers are running dry. But Smith says provincial fortunes have also been challenged by unchecked immigration, hinting Thursday's address will be about taking back control.
Things need to change. There's no question about it. It was the number one issue that we heard in the Alberta Next panel.
How many of you?
The province's summer-long consultation tour featured a series of government-produced videos, including one blaming federal immigration policies for housing and other challenges, floating this potential solution.
We may have the option to withhold provincial social programs to any non-citizen or non-permanent resident.
On Wednesday, the Premier's executive director posted on X, the people orchestrating this reckless, unsustainable mass immigration into Canada fill me with profound disgust. Why import from nations with failed systems when our Judeo-Christian heritage and principles have worked so well here?
I think the question of whether Alberta should have more autonomy on federal immigration is the wrong question to ask, because the immigration surge in Alberta is not so huge if we look at numbers.
Data from Statistics Canada shows that since peaking in 2023-24, the number of international immigrants into Alberta has fallen sharply, with the Premier herself conceding the situation federally has changed.
I'm glad to see that the federal government, under the new Prime Minister, has started changing some of those programs, but it's going to take a few years.
Smith says she'd like to see Alberta have the same level of control over immigration as Quebec, where a decades-old agreement allows that province to set their own immigration targets and terms, though it does not give Quebec complete immigration control. Heather Urix-West, Global News, Calgary.
American military buildup ahead, the latest threat from the U.S. president to Iran. Iran and Russia held joint military drills today as the U.S. continues to increase its military assets in the Middle East. The U.S. president warned today that bad things will happen if Iran fails to strike a nuclear deal with the U.S. There are reports President Trump could make the decision to strike Iran as soon as this weekend. Reggie Cicchini reports.
A war of words between two adversaries could tip a geopolitical rift into a full-fledged war in the blink of an eye.
They cannot continue to threaten the stability of the entire region.
A rapid buildup of military hardware on land and water is a posture built for more than just a signal, one that hasn't been seen since the 2003 invasion of Iraq.
We're either going to get a deal or it's going to be unfortunate for them. 10, 15 days, pretty much maximum.
Indirect talks this week resulted in little progress. The U.S. wants Tehran to end its nuclear ambitions, but the regime appears to be fortifying sites damaged in 2025, which could come with the consequence that itself has an unclear objective.
We're sleepwalking into what could be a major campaign and a regional war without asking the right questions. Not only can the U.S. do it, but should the U.S. do it?
Iranians, despite protesting against their government last month, see diplomacy as critical, but don't appear to be fazed by threats. Let the regional and global powers test their strength and see who can defeat the other, this resident says.
With respect to Iran or any country around the world, diplomacy is always his first option.
The U.S. has given Iran 2 weeks to flesh out a proposal. It's unclear if Donald Trump will wait that out, resulting in a strike that could spark a fierce response.
Iran does have significant retaliatory capability. It could strike Israel. It could try to strike U.S. forces in the region. It could try to strike U.S. allies in the region.
If the lions swoop in and attack us, Israel's prime minister said, they can't imagine the reaction. Israeli forces have been on heightened alert for weeks, making preparations for another possible war at the direction of an American president who has branded himself as a promoter of peace. Reggie Cicchini, Global News, Washington.
They call him Big Rig. Next, the Canadian athlete going for gold. One of the fastest, most physical sports in the Winter Games is ski cross. It debuted at the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver. Since then, Canada has won 4 of 8 gold medals, and a Canadian is the one to beat at the Games underway now. Here's Mike Armstrong.
It isn't a sport for the risk-averse. 4 skiers, shoulder to shoulder, first one to the bottom wins. Reese Howden grew up as a downhill racer, got a chance to try ski cross, and was hooked.
In my opinion, it's like NASCAR. Like it's like the classic, rubbing is racing.
Howden hit a milestone in December with his 21st World Cup gold. He's now the winningest men's ski cross racer in World Cup history. One of his strengths, he says, is his start.
I think they say if you win the start, you have an 80% chance of going through that round. Just there is a huge moment, right? Like as soon as that gate drops, you're usually going at 110%.
Now, that intensity requires focus. Howden says experience helps him balance being ready with not overthinking. He says the sport is so quick and dangerous, it makes life away from the slopes seem slower.
You know, when you're out there going to school, doing an exam, and people are losing their minds, it's like, it's not gonna hurt me, man. You're gonna be okay. Even like, what's the worst thing that happens? You fail and you have to redo the course. That's fine. It doesn't mean, it's not like you're gonna break your neck.
Good job, Vivi. Come on out. Come on out.
Now, some of Howden's hobbies aren't much safer. He spent some time in Texas a few years ago and fell in love with another competition, rodeo.
I loved riding bulls, man. It felt so, like the adrenaline that you get or like the dopamine hit was addictive, for sure. But also it's really cool to go from being someone who does a activity at the highest level, if not, one of the best in the world, and then doing something that when you start out, you're pretty much incompetent.
Now, Howden admits some of the things he likes to do off the slopes are a little less safe than his coaches are comfortable with, but he says if it's something he loves doing, he's going to do it. Not all that surprising, considering his sport. Donna?
All right, Mike, thank you. That is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Air Canada is New Bay near Moores Cove, Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.